So let's talk about the friction in regenerative farming then, and what we can change, and the things that need fixed. So farmers are good at farming. Okay, we're just kind of wired that way. So we talk about the grazing management system and how we do certain things, and we're very task and operationally oriented. Okay, but we've lost our marketing gene or something, in a few generations, because we get so busy in the day to day that we forget to, focus on selling what we have. So it'd be like having Apple inventing the iPhone and then not having an event or any marketing to support the sales, right? It would never have succeeded. So I don't see that we've got an army of farmers that want to do something different. They don't know how, maybe don't have the skill set or those kind of things. And how do we get uh, a person with your type of vision and resources of, the experience resources that you have of creating a scalable company to connect direct to the consumer without here's the big caveat, without being like every other food company, Nestle and Pepsi and all the consolidators and processors that are just, you know, sticking it essentially to the farmer, taking all of that margin that they possibly can, where a farmer's just trading dollars. Um, how can we, you and I, change that model? Could there be a place where you have talent like you and your team at the marketing in a cooperative model that would profit share back to those farmers, where they're maybe selling it for what they would into the conventional commodity system, but because they participate in your marketing food hub, there's a cooperative model or a profit sharing model that would work. Have you ever given much thought to that?
Yeah, and I think you see things like, I mean, there are marketplaces, but I'm not sure that will solve the problem. Being wholesale, Greg Gunther is a fantastic example. You brought up COVID, right? And Greg had invested his entire business on serving white tablecloth restaurants. And one day, white tablecloth restaurants
They were done.
disappeared. And it was a great lesson for all of us. All of his product was packaged for restaurants. And, that was when we first started working with him, because it's like, okay, we have these direct to consumer consumers. Our business is skyrocketing. Yeah, we need more chicken breasts. Well, I don't, mine are in 50-pound bags, or they weren't 50 pounds, but, it's like we had to break this stuff down. And, it's a dependency, right? And a marketplace still is a dependency. Um, and we should be independent and we should serve our communities. And that's the thing. And the search engines want the local provider to win, right? That's their model right now is the more local you are, because someone's going to type in grass-fed beef near
Near me.
me.
Mhm.
Exactly. And that's the search. Chicken near me, chicken recipe. And, um, and if there's a recipe that comes from All Recipes and a recipe that comes from Chris Baggott in Greenfield, Indiana, and you're in Knightstown, the town next door, I'm going to win that search. Wasn't always that way, right? It used to be domain authority and all that stuff, but it's not. So, the web tools are easy,
Why
but
why
you also
is
have
that?
to,
Why does Google want that near me to work? Because the dollars that's being spent there, is that commensurate to what they could get with a national brand?
well,
On
they want
ad
more
dollars,
content,
or they want the
right?
eyeballs searching for it?
They
Which is
want, yes, they want more content. What they've come to realize is, we used to have this saying at Compendium called content is data. And you go to Facebook right now, if you're on Meta Business, and I don't know if you are, you probably are, but look at their recommendations. 38 Facebook stories a week, 38 Instagram stories a week. They want me to do 14 to 16 Facebook posts a week. Like, that's their recommendation. Think about that volume, right? That's just Facebook, right? And then everybody else. Um, they want that content because they want the customer to be happy, because they want those eyeballs. And they also have their antitrust problems, right? If this whole thing consolidated which is like what's happening on DoorDash. Type in hamburger on DoorDash, McDonald's is going to win, right? That was predictable. Used to be my neighborhood hamburger stand, but you know, um, so there are antitrust concerns here. There's what people want, like people want to support their communities if possible. As I mentioned earlier with the music analogy, um, and I say in my TED talk, right? Like the idea of a grocery store is crazy. Like, I have to do all this work. I've got to drive there. I've got to walk through all kinds of weather, you know, across the 3 acre parking lot. My grandchildren will not know what a cart is, right? It's just going to be a little icon, you don't know if your product's going to be there. Grocery delivery is booming. I mean, you go into your you know, small town Greenfield, Indiana Walmart, you can't walk in there anymore because of all the carts where they're assembling other people's orders, right? Because they don't want you in the store anymore. Like I get free delivery from Walmart. They want me to order and have delivery. Stores are expensive and a pain, and delivery is easy. As more and more people get accustomed to getting their food delivered, their groceries, I'm going to go to Walmart for my aluminum foil and toilet paper, but now I get all my salad from Shanty Farms in Wilkinson, Indiana, and they deliver it to me for free. I get all my meat, obviously, from Tyner Pond. And you think about the farmer transition. I'm sorry, I tend to ramble. So um, I read this article. I try and read the Wall Street Journal every day. I just always, two or three articles are going to jump out at me. One was about this guy in California who's been in business 6 years, doing $6 million a year, selling basically heirloom dry beans. He's got a waiting list that's 2 years long. He sells by subscription. You can only buy from him by buying a pound of dry beans a month. He's totally caught the wave of protein and demand, so then you're like, huh, you start looking at that. You start looking at search volume on those things. So I personally planted 2 acres of dry beans this year, purple striped cow beans. And I'll see if they grow or not. I've never planted a crop before, but I hear about people in Illinois planting rice. I hear about people planting heritage wheats, not just like Icorn, but like wheats we ate in the 1850s before roller mills, like red Fife, and you've got this amazing boom of home sourdough bakers.
Yep.
Like we probably have 5 legitimate commercial home bakers in our community of maybe 15 or 16,000 people. Um, they want that wheat. Like that's a market right here in your little town of Greenfield, Indiana. Here's 5 people you could sell wheat to, and probably charge a premium for it. And you already have all the equipment. You know how to do this. Like I don't know how to you know I mean, I'm out there hoeing like it's 1840 with my little crop of beans. But if I can sell them, then next year maybe I'll contract with somebody to grow them for me. So I don't know, there's just so much opportunity in food, and you get out of thinking about farming as a commodity and into thinking about food and what people eat. um,
So if I'm hearing you right, your answer is as a farmer, if you're going to grow something, you cannot lend off the marketing. You need to be in the marketing seat, getting
I,
it done.
I
And
think
that's
that's where
your
the puck
story. You
is
have to have
and where it's going to continue to go. It's about the people.